For 12 years, The Big Bang Theory quietly dangled one small question in front of you. When are Penny and Leonard finally going to have a baby? Here's a couple, together across the entire run of the show, married for years, and no child, right up until the very last minutes of the very last episode. The show played it as a gentle, running tension, a will they won't they for the second half of the series. But there was a reason they waited that long, a real one. And it was sitting right there in their apartment the entire time, so obvious, so constant, that nobody ever had to say it out loud. Penny and Leonard didn't wait 12 years because of bad timing, or bad luck, or cold feet. They waited because they already had a child, and raising him took absolutely everything they had. And I want you to hold something close for this one, because it's why it reaches past the show and into real life. If you have ever watched your own life get quietly put on hold, your own plans, your own family, your own future, because you were too busy taking care of someone else who needed you more, then you already feel exactly where this is going. This is a story about a couple whose whole capacity to be parents got used up years before they ever tried, on someone who was already fully grown. So let me be precise. It's not that Penny and Leonard couldn't have a baby. It's not that they ran out of time or money or opportunity. It's this. They were already parents. They had been for years. Every ounce of patience, energy, scheduling, worry, and care that a couple pours into their first child, Penny and Leonard were already pouring completely into a grown man who could not function without them. Their nest was never empty. It just had a fully grown adult in it. That's the engine of this whole video. The baby that couldn't come because the crib was already occupied. Welcome back to 4A. Today, we're following the thread from my last video one step further, into the marriage at the center of the show, and by the end, I think the timing of one specific pregnancy is going to hit you like a freight train. Let's start by establishing the thing the show spent 12 years showing you and never quite naming. Penny and Leonard were already raising a child, and his name was Sheldon. If you saw my video on Leonard and Sheldon, you already know the shape of it. Leonard drove Sheldon everywhere, fed him, comforted him, managed his meltdowns, signed a contract governing his care. But Penny was every bit as much a parent in that arrangement, and the show is astonishingly direct about it. When Sheldon is sick, Penny is the one who has to sing him soft kitty, soothing him like a feverish toddler. When Sheldon has a nightmare, they comfort him. When Penny takes Sheldon out for the day and brings him home late, Leonard frets about his bedtime like a co-parent. And here is the single most on-the-nose detail the show ever gave us, the one that should end all argument. At one point, Penny literally reads a parenting book, an actual book about how to raise children, and uses its techniques to reshape Sheldon's behavior. She read a child-rearing manual to manage a grown man, and it worked. The show isn't being subtle. It flat out treats Penny as Sheldon's mother figure, the same way it treats Leonard as his father. Fans, writers, everyone landed on the same phrase for the two of them. They were Sheldon's Pasadena parents. And here's the detail that makes it almost absurd. Their child didn't just depend on them, he ran their marriage. When Penny and Leonard hit a genuine rough patch, when the romance was fading and they were drifting apart, who stepped in to fix it? Sheldon. He drew up a relationship agreement for the two of them, a formal contract to repair their marriage, and sat them down to work through it. Let that sink in. The child they were raising took it upon himself to counsel his own parents' marriage. And the reason he cared so much about keeping mom and dad together was pure, undisguised anxiety about what would happen to him if they split up. He even asked them, point blank, if they got divorced, would he get 2 Christmases? That is a child of divorce's exact fear, spoken out loud by a grown man. Their entire marriage, from the driving to the counseling to the holiday logistics, was organized around the emotional needs of a dependent adult. This was not a couple who happened to have a needy friend. This was a household, a family unit. Parents, one very large child, and a marriage that spent as much energy managing him as it did nurturing itself. Of course, there was no room for a baby. The family was already complete and already exhausting. So now, hold that reality up against the running question of the back half of the series. When are Penny and Leonard going to have kids? And suddenly the question answers itself, doesn't it? They can't take on a baby, because every resource a baby would require, the time, the patience, the constant vigilance, the emotional labor, the reorganizing of your whole life around a dependent being's needs, is already spoken for. It's all going to Sheldon. You cannot bring a newborn into a home that is already, functionally, a nursery for a 30-year-old. There was simply no room, not in the apartment, in their lives. The baby-shaped space was full, and the show knew what it was doing, because it kept poking the question on purpose. Over and over in the later seasons, someone would float the idea of Penny and Leonard having kids, and the show would swat it away. When Howard and Bernadette Wu are panicking about having a second baby so soon, Bernadette actually suggested that Penny and Leonard should have one too, sort of to spread the misery around, and the couple flatly declined. The will they won't they baby question became a low, steady hum under the back half of the series, a thing everyone kept circling and nobody could ever quite make happen, and that is exactly the tell. Because in fiction, when a couple wants something for years and it just never quite arrives, it's almost never really about biology. It's about the writers knowing, on some level, that the thing is blocked. And here, the block had a name and a designated spot on the sofa. This is what it looks like when a couple pours all its caretaking into the wrong dependent. You become the reliable ones, the responsible ones, the two people the whole group leans on, and somewhere in there, your own future quietly gets deferred, again and again, because you are always needed right now, today, by someone who cannot wait. Their own family kept getting postponed because their current family kept needing them. And now, we get to the timing, and I need you to really pay attention here, because this is the part that turns a cute observation into something the show is practically confessing to. Penny spends the entire final season making it clear she does not want kids. And then, in the second to last episode of the entire series, she gets pregnant. Accidentally. And I want you to look at exactly when it happens, because the writers chose this, deliberately, and it is almost too perfect. The pregnancy is conceived on the very night that Penny takes Sheldon out drinking, one last time, as his story is wrapping up. By that point in the series, Sheldon has finally grown up. He's married Amy. He's moved out, across the hall, into his own place. He has become, at long last, an independent adult who no longer needs his Pasadena parents to run his life. The nest, after 12 long years, is finally, genuinely empty. And that is the exact moment the real baby arrives. Not before, not during the years of active Sheldon parenting. But in the very last breath of the series, the instant their first child has fully launched. For over a decade, no baby. The moment Sheldon no longer needs raising, Penny is pregnant. That is not a coincidence. That is the show telling you, structurally, in the language of plot instead of dialogue, the thing it never once said out loud. You cannot raise a baby while you are still raising Sheldon. So the writers waited until he was gone. They emptied the nest, and only then did they let a real child into it. The timing is the confession, and the show drives the timing home by surrounding Penny with the exact alternative she's expected to want. Because Amy, Sheldon's wife, does have children, Sheldon and Amy become parents. And well before that, Amy is openly disappointed that she and Penny won't get to be pregnant together, that their kids won't grow up as friends, as though Penny somehow owes her that. So even as Penny holds her ground, she is boxed in on every side by a world that has already decided what a woman her age, in a stable marriage, is supposed to do next. Her best friend is planning their joint motherhood. Her husband is quietly grieving children he simply assumed they'd have. Her friends are calling, her choice wrong to her face. It is a full court press, an entire social world leaning on one woman to override her own clearly stated wish. And the cruelest part is how reasonable it all looks from the outside. Everyone smiling, everyone loving, everyone just so completely sure they know what's best for Penny. That's what makes it so recognizable. This is almost never villains twirling mustaches. It's the people who love you, absolutely certain that your no is just a yes you haven't grown into yet. But here's where this stops being a cute little theory and turns into something genuinely sad, because there's a second layer to that pregnancy, and it's about Penny specifically. Because Penny did not want this baby. And I don't mean she was nervous. I mean, she said it, clearly, repeatedly, all season long. She told Leonard she never wanted children, that she couldn't see herself ever wanting them, that she was terrified she'd be a horrible mother. This was not a whim. It was one of the clearest, most consistent things her character ever expressed. And watch how the people who supposedly loved her responded to a grown woman stating a boundary about her own body and her own life. They steamrolled her. Bernadette told her, to her face, that not wanting kids wasn't just strange, it was wrong, and that she only thought she didn't want them and would surely change her mind once she had them. Amy was disappointed because she'd wanted them to be pregnancy buddies. And Leonard, heartbroken, went behind Penny's back and told her own father about it, turning her private choice into a family disappointment. Every single person around Penny told her that she was wrong about her own life. And the season pushes on that wound in an even stranger way, through the husband of Leonard's old flame, Zach. If you saw my video on Zach, you know he's the good-hearted dim ex who married well. It turns out Zach can't have children, so he asks Leonard, of all people, to be a sperm donor, so he and his wife can have a baby. And watch what this does to Penny, because it's genuinely revealing. Penny, who has said clearly that she doesn't want kids, suddenly can't stand this idea either. She tries to stop the donation, even attempting to seduce Leonard away from going through with it, and she finally admits the raw, complicated truth. She doesn't want to have Leonard's child herself, but she also cannot bear the thought of some other woman out there raising Leonard's child. That is not the confession of a simple, cold woman who hates children. That is a real, tangled, honest human heart. Penny's feelings about motherhood were always more complicated and more truthful than anyone around her was willing to sit with. And instead of exploring that genuine complexity, giving us a fully realized woman wrestling with a hard personal question, the show flattened all of it, at the very last minute, into a surprise pregnancy and a bow. It had something rich and true right there in its hands, and it traded it for a tidy ending. And then the show made her pregnant anyway, by accident, in the finale, and framed it as her happy ending. The woman who said, over and over, all season that she did not want this, gets handed exactly the thing she said she didn't want. And the music swells like it's a gift. Even Kaylee Cuoco, the actress who played Penny for 12 years, has said she wished they hadn't done it. That she loved the message of a woman who simply didn't want kids and didn't need them to be happy. So, understand what that pregnancy actually is, sitting there at the end. It isn't only the baby that finally arrived once Sheldon moved out. It is the very last time in the entire series that Penny's own wishes came dead last. She spent over a decade putting everyone else's needs ahead of her own, and her send-off, her final note, is her own clearly stated choice being quietly overruled so that Leonard could have the family he wanted and the show could tie its bow. And if you want proof that this ending was always about Leonard's dream and not Penny's, look at where it comes from. It comes from the pilot, the very first episode of the entire series. The moment Leonard meets Penny, before he knows a single real thing about her, he turns to Sheldon and blurts out that their babies will be smart and beautiful. Their babies. He decided, in the first 5 minutes of the show, that Penny was going to be the mother of his children, and the series then spent 12 years quietly working to make that one pilot line come true. And here's the payoff that confirms it. That exact prediction about Penny and Leonard's smart and beautiful babies gets echoed again at the very end, woven right into Sheldon's Nobel Prize speech. The baby was never Penny's arc paying off. It was Leonard's fantasy from episode 1, finally delivered, and blessed on the biggest stage the finale had. Penny's entire journey with motherhood was bent, from the very start, to satisfy a line a man said about her before he had even learned her name. Now, I want to Steelman the other side, honestly, because it deserves it. You could say, come on, it's a happy ending. People change their minds about kids all the time. She warms up to it. Plenty of unplanned pregnancies turn into the best thing that ever happened to someone. You're reading way too much into a sitcom, and I'll grant a lot of that. People genuinely do change their minds, and warming up to a surprise is real and valid. And there is nothing wrong with the version of this story where a woman shifts and finds joy she didn't expect. But here's what the happy ending defense can't explain away. First, the timing is still the timing. The writers still chose to have her conceive on the night of Sheldon's send-off. After 12 childless years, the instant the nest emptied. That's a deliberate structural choice, and it says exactly what I've been telling you it says. And second, the problem was never that Penny has a baby. The problem is that the show spent a whole season having everyone she loves tell a woman that her clearly stated no was wrong, and then rewarded that chorus by proving them right. That's not a woman freely changing her mind. That's the oldest tired trope in the book, the one that insists every woman secretly wants a baby no matter what she says, and it handed Leonard his dream at the direct expense of what Penny had asked for. The parenting energy was Sheldon's for 12 years, and the one time a child came that was actually hers to carry, the choice still wasn't hers. And notice that the pressure came from her own father too, which closes a circle I talked about elsewhere. When Leonard, heartbroken over the no kids conversation, went behind Penny's back, the person he told was Wyatt, Penny's dad. And if you saw my video on Wyatt, you'll remember that his whole modest dream for his daughter was that she'd settle down, be safe, and give him grandkids before he died. So now Penny has her husband, her best friends, and her loving father all gently, sincerely aligned against the one clear thing she keeps saying about her own life. And this is where I have to name the trope directly, because it's one of the oldest and laziest in all of storytelling. It's the idea that no woman ever really means it when she says she doesn't want children. That her no is always temporary, always a phase, always a yes in disguise that just needs a little time to ripen. Bernadette says it out loud, almost as a thesis statement, that Penny only thinks she doesn't want kids and will realize she did once she has them. And then the show goes and proves Bernadette right, which is the single worst choice it could possibly have made. It took a woman who knew her own mind and told her, and told the audience, that she never really did. And once you see that, you see it's just the final, perfect example of the entire shape of Penny's existence on this show. Zoom out. Penny is the emotional heart of the group, the one who holds everyone together, the one who parents Sheldon, the one who reads people and smooths things over, and gives the good advice. And what does she get for it? She gives up her acting dream, quietly, and it barely earns a mention in the later years. She gets less and less of her own story as the show goes on and Sheldon slowly takes it over. Her mother appears in a single episode of the entire series, while Sheldon's mother and Leonard's mother turn up well over a dozen times each. Penny, the beating heart of the whole thing, consistently, structurally, comes last, and the pregnancy is the flawless capstone. Even the ending of her own story, even the use of her own body, ends up belonging to Leonard's dream and Sheldon's timeline, instead of to her. And nothing lays it bare like lining up how the finale treats each character. Look at the send-offs, side by side. Sheldon wins the Nobel Prize, the pinnacle of his entire life. Howard, the man who always dreamed of space, had already been to space. Raj gets to stroll in with a celebrity on his arm. Even Leonard gets his career wins, and now, his long-desired baby. Every single one of them is handed the exact thing they spent the whole series wanting. And Penny? Penny's grand finale triumph, her happy ending, her reward for 12 years, is a pregnancy she spent the entire final season insisting she did not want. Read that lineup one more time. The men each get their dream. The woman gets a dream that belonged to her husband. She is the only lead whose ending is something she actively argued against. That is not a coincidence of writing. That is the whole quiet hierarchy of the show, laid bare in its final hour. Sheldon's ambitions first, the men's dreams next, and Penny, the beating heart of the entire thing, handed a happy ending she never asked for and gently told to smile. So let me land this. Penny and Leonard did not wait 12 years to have a baby because of bad luck. They waited because they already had one. They had Sheldon, and raising him, the driving, the comforting, the tantrum managing, the actual parenting book, the years of putting a grown man's needs at the center of their marriage, took every ounce of parenting they had in them. There was no room for a baby, because the crib was already full. And when the nest finally emptied, when Sheldon at last grew up and moved across the hall and stopped needing to be raised, the real child arrived within the same breath on everyone's schedule but Penny's. The child on that sofa got 12 years of her care, freely and lovingly given. The child she actually carried only showed up after he left, and only after the show decided, over her own stated objections, that she was supposed to want it. And if it feels like Penny's own wants getting lost is a one-time thing, it isn't. It's the pattern of her entire arc, and the baby is just the final, cleanest example of it. Think about everything Penny gave up along the way. She came to Los Angeles with a real dream, to be an actress, and she chased it for years. And the show slowly, quietly let that dream die, until it barely earned a mention in the later seasons. She poured herself into holding the group together, into parenting Sheldon, into being everyone's steady, reliable, emotional center. And in doing all of it, her own story got smaller and smaller as the show went on. The caretaker disappears into the caretaking. It happened to Leonard too, as I talked about last time, but it happened to Penny most of all, because she was giving on every front at once, to the group, to Sheldon, to Leonard's dreams, to everyone's needs but her own. By the end, the woman who was the beating heart of the whole show had quietly handed away her ambitions, her story, and even the final say over her own body, one selfless inch at a time, to everyone around her. And here's what I want you to carry out of this one, because I think some of you have lived a version of it. If any of this landed hard, it's maybe because you know what it's like to put your own life on hold to take care of someone who needed you, to watch your own plans and your own family sit in a waiting room while you poured yourself into somebody else. Or maybe you know what it's like to say a clear, honest no about your own life and have everyone who loves you insist they know better than you do what you really want. So hear the thing nobody in that apartment ever quite said to Penny. Your timeline is allowed to be yours. Your own life is allowed to come first, at least sometimes, and your no is a complete sentence. It doesn't need everyone else's permission to be real. Penny gave 12 years of her care to someone else's child before her own story finally got a turn, and even then, it wasn't fully hers. You don't have to wait for the nest to empty to be allowed to want your own life. So the next time you see Penny roll her eyes and go take care of Sheldon one more time, look again. That's not just a good neighbor being patient. That's a woman raising a child that isn't hers, giving away years she'll never get back, while everyone waits and wonders why she and Leonard don't just hurry up and have a baby of their own. And if the ending sits a little less sweetly with you now, well, good. That means you finally saw whose life was quietly coming last the whole time. Before you go, stay right here in 4A, because next time we're crossing the hall to the most misunderstood marriage in the whole show. Howard Wolowitz spent his entire life desperate to escape his loud, overbearing, suffocating mother. He swore he'd get away from her. So how exactly did he end up married to a woman who takes care of him just like she did, scolds him just like she did, and in a detail the show could not possibly have made more obvious, sounds almost exactly like her? Howard didn't escape his mother at all. Hit that bell so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you back in 4A.